Welcome to T News 9 channel. We're diving into chapter 41 of The Cases That Wait, titled What Happened There. Truth doesn't need detail, it needs sequence. We didn't ask him to tell the story, we rebuilt it ourselves. Order exposes lies better than memory ever does. The chair wasn't for restraint, not at first. It was for waiting. People think captivity starts with force, but it really starts with delay. The bottle wasn't an act of mercy. It was all about timing. Just enough to keep her conscious. Just enough for him to keep control. There were no marks on the floor, because she wasn't dragged. There was no damage on the door, because it wasn't locked at the beginning. He spoke then, without being prompted. She sat, he said. She asked how long. It always comes back to time. She thought it was temporary. He continued. And that was the truth, slipping through. You see, people don't ask how long unless they believe they'll eventually leave. We matched his words to the physical space, the distance from the chair to the door, the angle of the light streaming in, the cut straps. She realized what was happening before he did. That's how it often goes. Victims sense the end before their perpetrators accept it. She stood, he said quietly. We didn't ask why. We didn't need to. Control doesn't survive resistance. It escalates, not wildly, but precisely. The disturbed ground outside told the rest of the story. It wasn't about violence, it was about finality. People don't bury what they think will come back. A silence settled in the room. He stopped talking. The place had finished speaking for him. I wrote the last line of the sequence in my notebook. Not names, not emotions, just the order of events. Because order is how truth stays standing. Chapter 42 of The Cases That Wait, titled after the truth. Knowing isn't the end. It's the beginning of carrying it. The room felt smaller after he confessed, not because the walls had moved in, but because the space once filled with tension and suspicion was now just an empty silence. Nothing needed to be said anymore. He just sat there, quietly now, his hands finally still, his eyes unfocused, staring at nothing. People think the truth shatters you, but it doesn't. It just empties you out. I had to get some air, so I stepped outside. The world hadn't changed. That bothered me. Cars still drove by, birds hopped along the power lines, and the city kept its steady, indifferent rhythm. It always does, doesn't it? Back inside, I could hear the other officers speaking in those flat, procedural tones. Evidence, chain of custody, next steps. It's a language designed to create distance, to keep the sharp edges of reality from cutting too deep. I signed the necessary forms, my hands surprisingly steady, my signature more solid than I felt. The voice in my head, the one that runs through all the possibilities, had gone silent. It always does after the truth arrives. It just leaves you alone with what remains. I found myself thinking about Lena's apartment, the watered plants on the windowsill, the laundry half folded on her bed. Her life was paused, not ended. And that distinction, it matters so much to the people left behind. Someone would have to tell her family, but not today. Today was for process, for accuracy. Looking out the window, I saw the van being towed away. There was no drama, no big scene. It was just a vehicle again, an object, stripped of its sinister role. Tools always lose their power once you name them, once you understand their purpose. I watched until it turned the corner and disappeared. Then I went back inside and sat across from him one last time. He looked up at me. He wasn't asking for mercy, or for anything really. He was just checking if the control he once held was truly gone. It was. Someone will be with you soon, I said. It wasn't a cruel statement, but it wasn't kind either. It was just true. I got up, left the room, and closed the door gently behind me. After the truth, there's nothing left to interrogate. There are only consequences. The truth had finally arrived. Now, it just had to live somewhere. It's chapter 43, The Arrest. Arrests aren't about surprise, they're about certainty. We waited until morning, not for strategy, for clarity. He stood when we entered, not because he had to, because he'd learned the room no longer belonged to him. I read the charges, slowly, each word placed where it couldn't be mistaken. He listened, not angry, not confused. People only argue when they still believe in outcomes. I asked if he understood. He nodded, once. That was all. The cuffs closed without resistance. No struggle, no speech. Control doesn't explode when it ends. It folds. In the hallway, officers paused, some curious, some relieved. No one celebrated. This wasn't that kind of arrest. Outside, the air was brighter than it deserved to be. Morning traffic moved like nothing had changed. I placed him in the car myself, not for symbolism, for closure. He looked straight ahead, didn't ask where we were going. He already knew. As we pulled away, he spoke once. Will they know why? Not who. Why? I didn't answer. Explanations don't belong to the guilty. They belong to the living. The car disappeared into traffic, just another vehicle. That's how endings usually look, unremarkable. I stood there a moment longer than necessary, then turned back inside. There were still things to finish. Chapter 44 of the novel. The Cases That Wait. It's titled, What Remains. Cases end. Echoes don't. The station returned to routine faster than it should have. Phones rang. Printers hummed their mechanical tune. Someone even laughed down the hall. In the wake of tragedy, normalcy always feels disrespectful at first. Lena's name began its inevitable migration from the present to the past tense. It happened on official forms, in daily briefings, and in the quiet, careful way people spoke of her. It's always language that's the first thing to close the door on a life. Her apartment key sat sealed in an evidence bag on my desk. I picked it up. It still felt warm, as if it had just left someone's hand. I held it for longer than I needed to. I guess objects don't know when they transform into symbols. A fellow detective stopped by my desk and asked if I was okay. I told him yes. It's the standard answer, the one you give when you know there's no real space for anything else. Down at the river, the storage units were sealed shut. Strips of yellow tape flapped in the wind, looking not dramatic, but just tired. A small, makeshift memorial had appeared near the gas station. A few flowers. A handwritten note with neat, careful handwriting. It said simply, "You mattered." 3 words, trying their best to hold the weight of a life. Back at the office, the case file grew thicker. It was filled with photos, transcripts, and meticulous typings. Everything was accounted for. Everything except the meaning behind it all. I closed the folder, not gently, but not with anger either. Just finished. That night, I drove home the long way. I drove right past the turn I didn't need to take anymore. It's funny how habits can outlive their purpose. Waiting at a red light, a small but heavy realization settled on me. No one would ever ask me about Lena again. Not after the trial wrapped up, not after the verdict was read. Justice doesn't preserve memory. People do. When I finally reached home, I left the lights off. I just sat there in the dark for a moment, listening, because some things don't ever really leave. They just settle deep inside you. Chapter 45. The file that stayed open. Closed cases don't always close. The file was stamped, signed, filed, archived. Everything the system requires to believe a story has ended. I should have let it go. Most people do, but this one felt different. Weeks passed, and the legal machinery churned on without me. The trial moved forward with its predictable rhythm of dates, motions, and tired arguments. I stopped attending. It wasn't about avoidance. It was a sense of completion, or so I told myself. The system had what it needed. Then, one night, long after the city outside had gone quiet, I was clearing my desk, and there it was. The file. It hadn't been properly archived. It was just set aside, as if waiting. Misplaced. Or maybe it wasn't misplaced at all. Maybe it had stayed for a reason. I opened it. Nothing was missing. All the grim details were there, neatly documented. Yet, something felt profoundly unfinished. Not in a legal sense. The evidence was solid, the narrative complete for the courts. This was personal. Lena's photo stared back at me. It wasn't one of the stark, sterile images from the crime scene. It was a picture from before. A candid shot, capturing a spontaneous, genuine smile. A woman unaware of the significance her life, and its end, would one day hold for a stranger like me. And in that moment, I understood. The case hadn't stayed open in my mind because of some lingering doubt about the verdict. It stayed open because of a sense of responsibility, a responsibility that goes beyond legal closure. Some stories don't just ask to be solved, they ask to be carried correctly. They ask for the person at their center to be remembered not as a case number, but as a life lived. I took out a single, clean sheet of paper. I didn't add new evidence or a new theory. I just wrote a short note, a simple acknowledgement that she was seen, that her story was believed, that she mattered beyond the cold facts of the case. Then, I closed the folder, this time, gently. No rush, no frustration. I walked it to the archive room myself. I watched the clerk slide it into its slot, disappearing into the vast, orderly rows of concluded stories. The system would remember the outcome. I would remember the person. That's the division of labor, I suppose. And that's the cost. I turned off the light in my office and left the building. The night air didn't feel heavy anymore. It just felt quiet, peaceful even. Some files stay open, not on paper, not in a cabinet. They stay open inside of us. The case was closed. The duty wasn't. Thank you for listening. For more stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to T News 9.